Hi, my name's Don Patterson, and we're in the middle of developing a web application to play the game Othello or the generic name Reversi. We're at the point now where we're finishing up our lobby interaction. And what we want to do is we want to add functionality or interactivity to our play button so that when a person clicks play, the game actually starts. To do that, we need to alter the main.js client-side code and the server code. So let's start with main.js and add the functionality that we need to add. So I'm going to open up main. And we're going to need to do something similar to the way that we altered our previous buttons. We're going to need to add some functionality to our play button. So let's go down to where we make our play button. There's our make invite button, make invited button. And our make play button, just like the other two, is going to need to be altered so that it accepts the socket ID of the player that you want to play with. We're going to create that button and we're going to copy the click code from above all the way down from 48 to 55 in my code and paste it here after this code. What we're going to do is something slightly different. We are going to set up the payload so that there's a requested user, and that's still going to be the socket ID, but the message that we're going to send is the game start command. And then we're actually going to send game start. Make sure you spell it right and remember how you spell it. And that's going to go to the server. The server doesn't know how to respond to that, doesn't know how to handle that yet, but we're going to change that so it does. And then what we need to do is we need to handle the response coming back, and we'll call that the game start response. So this sends it to the server processes it, and then we'll send it back to us. So if we come down here, let's use the same structure of the code as uninvited, handling uninvited. We'll copy that, and we'll paste it right below uninvited. But instead of uninvited, what we're going to handle is we're going to handle the game start response message that comes back. We're going to keep the code that checks to make sure that payload is good and that the result was not fail. And if it does come back cleanly, then we're going to go ahead and make the play button. And we're going to add, let's see, we're going to add the socket ID to that. And then we're going to put it, oh, let's see, I always spell game start response wrong. Make sure you get an S in there. All right. Check it. We're not going to make the play button. That's what we did when we did the uninvited or the invited or uninvited, depending on what we want. We're going to do the start game button, which is what I think I called it. And actually, the start game button doesn't need a socket ID. All right, and then we're going to replace that in our document object model with that. All right, so the flow is going to be you click on the play button. Let's come up here and see where we did that. You're going to click on the play button. That's going to send a game start message to the server. The server is going to respond with the game start response. As long as it's not fail, we're going to put the start game button in place. And that's kind of just a placeholder because you don't need to click on it. It's just to show the user that something's happening. And then after we do that, we are going to jump to the game page. And the way we're going to do that is with changing the IRI in the browser. So we'll say window.location.href, and that's going to equal, and then we have to be careful here because what we're constructing is the file name for the IRI. So the new file is going to be game.html, but we're going to add some parameters on it as well. So we're going to put the question mark and then username and then equals, and then the single quote, and we're going to append to that the username that we're currently working with. And then we're going to append to that a plus, a single quote. We're going to add another parameter, ampersand. We'll add game ID, and we are going to set an equal and then a single quote, and we're going to append whatever came back in the payload that is the game ID. So that'll be something that the server provides for us. My coloring is off here, and so I'm looking for something that I did wrong. Let's see. Here's my socket replaced with, why is it complaining to me here? Let's see, what am I doing wrong? Username, kind of looks okay to me, but I'm not sure what's off here. Let's see. Save it. That's the end of the function, and there's the end of the socket on. I'm a little, oh, here we go at the end. I also have an underscore, I have an error message here. There doesn't need to be a parenthesis there at the end. Okay, good. Now everything's lined up. That's all the flow that we need on main.js. Now we just need to set up server to handle the game start message and to send out the game start response message. So let's see, let's take a look at that. Let's bring up server.js and let's see, let's run to the top and just see what we've got going on here. We set up our server, we turn it on, we listen on a port, we set up a player's data structure, we start our server running. Whenever there's a connection, we have a function that does server log. Server log, here's our join room response. This is what happens when a client first opens up onto our lobby page. This is what causes them to put the buttons on. If we get an invite message, we've got that all ironed out. Then we get an uninvite message, and let's take that and let's start with that point for the game start. So we're going to copy uninvite all the way down to right before disconnect. All right, and after that we'll paste it, and we'll go to top of where I just pasted, and we're going to change this to the game start method handler. So server received a command, it's game start, and the payload, if the payload is good, client did not send a payload, and we're going to admit game start fail. It's going to be game start, but the payload's going to say it's failed. This is the game start response. And then it was the game start command that failed. Come down a little bit lower, we get our requested user and our room and our username. Those are all good. All right, if it doesn't work, then the client did not request a valid user to engage in play. And so then what happened is we have a game start response that we send back because the game start command failed. Then we come down here and we check our room, and the user that was engaged to play is not in the room if we didn't get that back. And then this becomes a game start response. And you know what? I see that we have an error there. Game start. All right, I'm going to do something. Watch what I'm doing here. I'm currently in the game start response code. I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to keep going. So I'm now in the uninvited code because I just saw that I had a bug. In the uninvited code here, if the room was not defined or null or equals, I said this is an invite response. That's actually an uninvite response. Uninvited. That should be uninvited. And an uninvite command failed. All right, now I'm going to leave the uninvited command handler, go down again. Now I'm in the game start handler. I'm going down to room. We handled room. Now I'm going to handle username. The user that was engaged to play does not have a name registered. So this is a game start response. Didn't go well, but it is a response because the game start command failed. All right, now we need to make sure that the player to engage is still present in the lobby. He didn't choose to play some other game, he or she. This is the same sockets, socket equals null, sockets.has requested user. Fail, the user that was engaged to play is no longer in the room. This is going to be a game start response. Sure I spell it right? And that is because the game start command failed. All right, this is not the uninvitee, that isn't in the room. This is the engaged player. But now we get down here and everything is okay. We got good data and everything is where we expect it to be. The engaged player is in the room. And so now we need to pick a random game ID. And this is what we're going to use in order to identify different games so that different people can play different games. And so we're going to do something that's similar to the code that we used when we created the anonymous user in main.js. But we're going to take math.floor. This is just generating a four or less digit string randomly. And so we're going to use math.floor, 1 plus math.random, so 1 plus a random number. And we are going to multiply that times a hexadecimal number. So times 0x1, and then it's like 100,000. So 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So 5 zeros. After that, we are going to take the result of that. We're going to turn it into that number into a string using base 16. And that should be it, I think. All right. Now we're going to construct our response. The response is success, but we also have to send the game ID, and the game ID is the game ID. Put a comma at the end of that. We will send the successful game start response back to the user that hit play, but we will also send, oh, actually it's the same packet, isn't it? All right, we don't have to have a new response. We can use the same one. And we're going to send it to the requested user. We're also going to send the game start response. So the person that was hit play and the person who invited. And then at the end, we'll say game start command succeeded. Now I often mistype response, so I'm just going to do a quick check to make sure I didn't miss the RESP. So I'm looking for REPONS. Okay, good. I didn't type anything wrong. All right, save and format everything. And now I'm going to try and start the server and see if I have any typos in my server code. Looks good. It's running. Go over here to my code, and I'm going to do empty cache and hard reload in the beginning. I'm going to have one player join. I'm going to have another player join. I'm going to invite B to play, and B is going to play. And we had some kind of error because what we expected is we expected those buttons to turn red and to shift to game. All right, so let's see what happened. We see fail, client did not request a valid user to engage in play. All right, so it looks like we did in fact send requested user here. So that did get sent in the payload. So let's see where we're calling make play button. And this is what we forgot to do. When we create in main.js, when we receive the invited command, we did not use the correct parameter here. We need to say payload.socket_ID when we make that play button. All right, save that. Don't need to restart the server because we just changed main.js, not server.js. So I'm going to come back here and empty cache and hard reload, empty cache and hard reload. Take our player and our second player, invite them, play, starting the game. Looks good. And we can see that on the left side, localhost 8080 game.html went to game E6B6E, and on the right we went to game E6B6E. Now we haven't implemented game.html, so we don't have anywhere for them to land, but it looks like our code worked and we did what we needed to do. So thank you for your attention. Good luck on implementing this on your own.